Welcome to The Backstory, a special series from Future of Faith. In each episode, we take a look behind the scenes of projects from the National Storytelling Initiative on Christian Faith and Life. We'll be pulling back the curtains on our own work, sharing the wins and the struggles, and inviting others on to do the same. We're going to learn from each other and build this community together.
Hey everyone, welcome back. We're glad to be with you again. I'm Elizabeth Coffey. I'm here with my friends Josh and Shannon, and we're here talking storytelling. So I want to hear updates on each of their projects before we jump into the interview with our guest. Shannon, would you mind getting us started and helping us catch up with where you all are at with your storytelling project?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Elizabeth. And it's great to be with you guys. There's a big part of our project that is like a really slow and strategic build. Like we're doing this data work and we're working with this design and marketing agency and that's still building. So like we're getting our data back next week. And that's like 75% of our work, right? Like that and we want creatives to respond to an RFP and we're building that process. But another part of our grant is this desire we have to cultivate a community of storytellers that can begin to see like a different way of being Christian in the world, that they can become story hunters. They're looking for where God is at work in the midst of communities across America, right? And where there's beauty, goodness, and truth. And so we're just beginning to plan our first storytelling gathering. And we've got some other grantees that are like, oh, that's part of our agenda too. Like we want to develop storytellers. And so I really love that because I think we're going to be collaborating with others. We've got both this kind of wide industry sage, like people that are professional industry storytellers that are like, well, we want to be a part of that, and like emerging young storytellers and then practitioners. Because I'm really inspired by what Brian Eno's been doing in London around bringing together creatives and practitioners to change the narratives around climate from narratives of disaster to narratives of hope. So I'm trying to think, how can we do that and how do we build a different relational field um, uh, through this work? And so we're just, yeah, so we've got it agreed. We've got some timelines. I can't say all the details yet, but we are in full planning mode for that to happen the beginning of next year. So, yeah.
And is there a website where you have all this stuff up yet?
We do not. We really are waiting through the process with Asha on the brand identity. And we're creating a container for this work. And so we're waiting until that feels really like there's a big identity that this can live under. And part of that's because it's also not just one organization doing this work. And we also are not thinking about this work being just for our three orgs, but ways that other denominations, institutions, faith groups can participate, that it's a banner we can come under together.
Mhm.
So we have nothing online yet, and we won't before the end of summer.
I keep going back and forth in our own project about like, do I put up a landing? And we have like a kind of landing page, and like, do I build that out to be a little bit more robust until we have like an actual thing, like so we could take like a year to launch an actual full-on thing, or do we just sort of like build it and keep adding to it and adding to it and adding? I haven't been able to figure that out yet.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, isn't it? Like I'm usually like a real quick start person. Like anybody that knows me knows I have an idea, want to make it real. Part of the way you make it real is you get all the collateral together.
Yeah.
This is so different than how I've built anything. It's slower, it's steadier, it's so collaborative. Um, so I don't know. In some ways, it feels weird not to have anything up. Like, okay, we're waiting. But then I think, oh, maybe it's just going deeper first.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's true.
I think there's pros and cons to both things. I just not have been able. Usually, it feels very intuitive. Of like, oh, I know what I feel like. I understand what best fits this project, and then this what it's the opposite of a state of confusion for me at the moment.
Do you think some of that is because it's multiple groups, um and it's less just you and future faith led.
Yeah, I think that's possible. Also, I think I'm trying to figure out how to support the lead because it's not, like Nikki is running this on the day-to-day side on our side, on Future Faith, and for VTS, it's Kyle and that team. And so it's like there isn't like a day-to-day, and by design, there's not like a day-to-day Josh role for this thing, but there are some tasks that I need to complete. And so um I think that's probably more of it than anything else. Is just me trying to figure out, how to with a like how do I support Nikki in getting the best container for this work moving forward that also is representative of Future of Faith as like a clear project, not a siloed thing. Um, and so I think that's probably more the hang up than anything else.
Quick clarifying question for the retreat, Shannon. Will there be the ability to eventually nominate people to attend as the storyteller? How are y'all curating that? Are y'all picking them? Just thinking as people are listening to this, is there a way for them to eventually participate in nominating? But then also, whether you're doing that or not, what's the profile? And maybe y'all are still figuring that out. What's the profile of the storyteller you're hoping attends this?
Yeah. So great questions. So in terms of, we're not going to do nominations. We do have a list. We have some people we've talked to, and we're trying to get to the people that are interested. But our idea for partners is also, there are other people. So there's another grantee, and they've been like working with some people that did some stuff for Chef's Table. But, so they've got some storytellers. So how do they bring them in? So through partnership, everyone's looking. But we do have a profile we've sketched out, and I don't have it in front of me, but it's a little bit of that mix of like,
Mhm.
say, so like people that have actually produced media that has been distributed, that's actually done compelling narrative work in the world. And then some like younger leaders, people that like want to do creative work in the world that helps people imagine a different, more hopeful future. And I think we want people that are probably on the edge of church, whether they are kind of 1 foot, like not sure this is it, or 1 foot in. So like somebody like a Lamorna Ash that's like discovering and inquisitive about faith, or somebody that's like, I think there's got to be more than this. Because I think what we're trying to do is help them go, oh, there is more,
Mhm.
and there is more happening in the world. So
Mm, that's
does that make
great.
sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm
So I,
excited to hear
I
more
think-
as y'all.
sorry.
No, I'm excited to hear more as y'all develop it.
Oh, thanks. I think I just was going to say, I think there's some formation work in that
Yeah.
way that we're hoping to form, like that a piece of formation work is done in the gatherings.
Okay. Yeah, that's exciting. Okay, Josh, before we hop into our guest, any updates that you want to share that we can talk about?
See, like I bet our listeners are probably feeling a lot of the same stuff of like watching these projects actually take off that a year ago were barely just words on a proposal as we moved through the summer to get the full proposal together, and now to start watching these things take shape. Like we are also picking sites for our gatherings. We are
Mm.
fielding some project briefs from people who might produce the first like 60 or 90-second, I guess, I don't know, trailer or explainer video that we can use at our local gatherings. And they're like storyboarding out these things. And so to watch it actually come to life, even if it is just like piece by piece, is both like really exciting and also um becomes more real in terms of the like, oh, hold on, I need to sit here for a minute. And this thing that has lived out in the cloud for a while, I need to actually read every word of this. Like I need to read every word of this and digest it very carefully and make a real decision. There's actual money. There's the real, there's a real like deliverable here in a person's life, and on and on. And so like I found that both to be extremely interesting and also like a challenge, like as a leader or executive of this organization, to make sure that I'm that I'm doing that work that is supposed to be done, of moving back and forth between these like high concept things all the way back down to the nitty gritty, so I can like Nikki can be in the best position possible to execute them. I like doing that, but I recognize that it's like a whole different phase of the work. So there's nothing major like moving externally at this point. I'll go away. We have our own internal like 1 month sabbaticals or working sabbaticals at Future of Faith for me and for Megan, so we can get big projects moved out the door. And the big project, like mine will be in June, and website, both for Future of Faith and for storytelling, will be that'll be the big focus for me in June. And so there'll be more to come, but already starting to collect and gather ideas.
Ooh,
But it
can
does
you
still
talk
feel more like iceberg under the water stuff,
Can you talk more about that rhythm that you kind of just named and then skirted by? Is this Sabbath that I or sabbatical idea of month, like what does that rhythm look like for you? Why do you do it, and what value have you found it bring?
Oh, yeah. Well, thanks for inviting me to give a TED talk. I appreciate that. No, we okay, but how to say this in like as condensed form as possible. We're really trying, not always getting it right, but really trying at Future Faith to do something differently in terms of like the way that we literally do work. Uh, we're it's a weird thing to say with these potential clients listening and partners. We're actively trying to not work 40 hours a week. In fact, significantly less than that. Trying to pay people still well and hire more people. We just hired 2 more contractors, for example, to help move projects out the door, and so we can still deliver what we're supposed to do. But like we're trying to be more expansive. We're trying to slow things down. Um, the way we talk about it, I think if we may have talked about it here before, is like we're trying to build for compost, not for empire. And one of the ways that we do that, that's just one, is that Megan Bissell, my co-founder, and I, we each take a month out of the year. We call it a working sabbatical. Basically, it means no travel, no meetings, and there is like a project. Like she has to pitch to me like what she's going to do, and then I have to say yes, or also what do you think about this, or whatever, and say me back to her. Um, Otherwise, the day to day work of running a business doesn't like it will just crush you. And I found it very helpful as an academic to have a sabbatical file where I could just toss every research idea into the file. And when sabbatical time came and I had to propose something, I had a file I could pull out. And I didn't do everything that was in that file by any stretch. And I knew I wasn't when I was tossing ideas in there. But the fact that it gave me someplace to park those things instead of, and then here's the link back to the beginning, instead of at 3 o'clock when I feel like I'm done for the day, or 2:30 or noon or whatever, instead of feeling like, ooh, I should really spend the last few hours of this day making incremental progress on this big idea that I will not pick up again for 3 weeks, but will consistently be hanging over my head. I don't do that anymore. Like now it just goes in the sabbatical file. So that was the idea for it. And like it feeds into this larger organizational value.
Okay, I just want to snaps to all of that. That's so exciting. I like I think it's so good to this our attention economy and in our time economy. And so thank you for sharing that in a season where folks listening to this may feel like, oh, I've just added a $5 million project on top of all the things that I'm
Yeah.
doing that isn't the core of our organization's heartbeat, like, and so anyways, thanks for reminding us that it's okay to also breathe and
We think
exhale.
God
So
wants you to be rested.
that's
That's,
good.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
And
Yeah, I love
Thanks.
that.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you both for sharing. I also think that's a great segue to enter into like what are the value systems undergirding why we even do this storytelling work, but our work in general, and what are the ethics by which we're functioning. And so super excited to get to chat. I had a great conversation with Laura Everett at Massachusetts Council of Churches, and hearing more about the project she and her partners are doing. And so I think that's an excellent segue into hearing more of her wisdom. So on to Laura. Laura, thank you so much for agreeing to do this with very little context over a text message thread. So, this is a true testament of knowing each other for extended periods of time and trust and all the things. So, thank you for that. I appreciate you. I'm excited for folks to listen in, and one, just to hear more about your storytelling initiative, both what you are planning and envisioning, but also to learn more about the Massachusetts Council of Churches a little bit. So, could we actually start there and give context to your organization a little bit, and then lead into the storytelling project that you have proposed to Lily? Would love to hear.
Sure. It's also really nice to see you.
So good. I know, this is
So
fun.
good. It's nice. Yes, so the Massachusetts Council of Churches, we exist to make the vibrant church visible and the flourishing of God's people across the great Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So, the Mass Council of Churches is 123 years old, and come November, I'll have been the executive director for the past 15 years,
Wow.
which is wild.
That is
Wild.
wild.
Yeah, it's
Amazing.
been a minute. And in a lot of ways, this storytelling initiative really feels, for me personally, like the culmination of a lot of those years of sort of grinding and building relationships and getting to know the Commonwealth really well. Um, for a 123-year-old institution, like I I love the Mass Council of Churches, but let's be clear, like, councils of churches are not exactly like, "Hey, you know what's a super innovative, flexible, like, cutting-edge Christian institution? Um, State Council of Churches. Like, let's figure out what they can do that's super interesting right now." And that's the forefront of, like, what we should be funding and finding interesting, to do. And so what is glorious about the Mass Council of Churches, like most things Massachusetts, we are the first state council of churches in the nation. We predate the founding of the National Council of Churches and the World Council of Churches.
I didn't know
Uh,
that.
yeah, yeah. Again, Massachusetts got to be the first at everything. Uh, we and right, like, legacy institutions have pluses and minuses. And I think the question for a lot of legacy institutions is, like, what are you gonna do with that privilege? And how does it help you and how does it hurt you? And for my tenure in leadership, I've been trying to figure out, like, how do you leverage that privilege in ways that are put in service? And when does that privilege hurt your ability for a credible Christian witness?
Mm.
And I think that's part of what storytelling is asking, in this American context, in Massachusetts, where we have a really low sense of credibility of the Christian story, um, Christian stories. And I think that's part of it. Like, there are many Christian stories. Um, we are a place that has historically been Roman Catholic, a place where many people don't go to church, a place that was the epicenter of the Roman Catholic clergy sex abuse scandals, a place that has sort of Yankee go-it-it aloneness and strong academic institutions and immigrant ingenuity and a lot of a sense of that your pedigree and your academic credentials are the thing that matters most to you. I know you're in Texas, but in Massachusetts, our first question to people is, "Where'd you go to school?"
And do you mean like college? Is that level of school?
Yeah, but sometimes even, like, past that, there's a
Yes.
sort of scratch test of,
In Texas, we're still at high school. So that's our question, is like where you went to high school, which is telling a lot about economic status and things like that. But we don't even broach yeah, so that's interesting. We don't broach higher education. Yeah.
Oh, higher education. Our celebrities in Massachusetts are our sports figures and our academics and our politicians, right? That's the dominant cultural narrative. And so, um, what does a viable Christian witness look like in this place? And I've worked here for a long time. I'm not originally from Massachusetts, but I've learned to walk among these people, love these people. You gotta love a place where you pastor. I believe that. And I've learned to pastor the Commonwealth. I love this place.
Mm.
And I believe the Holy Spirit is here. I
Mhm.
believe the Holy Spirit has a story to tell here, and the greatest joy is to continue to see where the Holy Spirit is doing good and incredible things, and to trust the Holy Spirit is constantly operative.
It's so beautiful to hear you talk about this place, these people, both its like shadow side
Yeah.
and hopeful side and everything between. And for you to say that storytelling or the potential of this initiative is kind of this culminating time for this tenure in your leadership, which is significant. That's a significant amount of time to be making long-term impact in one place, in one institution with a community of people. What what was the idea then? What was the spark and what did you propose?
So when the initiative came around, um, I mean, some of this is personal.
Mhm.
I'm a newspaper editor's daughter. On my dad's side, on my mom's side, a graphic designer. And so I really thought I was going to go into journalism, but the Lord had other plans and we renegotiated the deal. Um, and comms has been a strong part of my ministry. Um, the nice thing about a state that's as small as Massachusetts is you build good relationships. And because of that family history, like every family vacation was broken up by breaking news. Um, I know how to pastor journalists.
Mm.
I know that journalists see things they shouldn't see. I know that there is trauma because of what you cover. I know what it means to be working for a legacy news institution and have your job end because the revenue streams are ending, because the want ads don't make the kind of revenue that they once did,
Mm.
which reminds me so much of church, right?
Yeah.
These historic institutions that once had a kind of credibility that maybe they don't anymore.
Mhm.
So when when the storytelling proposal came out, there was something intriguing to think about that I've always been sort of playing with and have proficiency in, right? Like I do comms well. That's just part of my vocation. The other part of it comes from pastoral work.
Mm.
So one of the great gifts of leading a council of churches is you catch the folks that don't fit easily in any one space. People who are multi-denominational, people who live in between, people who pastor bivocationally, people who were raised in one tradition and found their home in another, right? Like it's the beautiful church sometimes frustrates me because we say we believe in a God who is fully human and fully divine, but we don't allow us organizationally to be multiple things, right?
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
for those of us who are bilingual or biracial or bicultural, right? Like we say pick one box and just stay there.
Mm.
Um, why not denominational? But I mean, that's another podcast episode, right? But uh, so when the proposal came up, this also came out of some hardship. I've now pastored at least 3 other pastors through the experience of doxing,
Mm.
which is when a swarm of bad actors will gather around an individual or an institution because they want to cause harm. Um, Often that happens online. Sometimes that can happen in person. Um, what I've experienced with each of the 3 pastors that I've worked with is their congregation or their institution and their denomination doesn't know what to do. They rarely know the terms, they don't know the safety protocols, and sometimes they blame the victim.
Mm.
The laws, the safety procedures, they're not in place. Um, and church is not great about abuse generally. Um, even less equipped for safety and security around internet protocols. And we were just sort of coming out of the end of COVID, and we had told everybody, go online, go online, go online. Your new workspace is 100% online. But we had not equipped anyone really and truly for what that meant.
Yeah.
And I got really nervous. And I had been sort of like talking with some Lily folks for a while about like, hey, I don't think we've thought all the way through the safety stuff on this.
Mm.
I don't think we have good safety protocols in place. And the last time it felt like the church had really done like a full-on safety assessment was around the clergy sex abuse scandals.
Mhm.
And I don't think we had done a fulsome job of that anyway. And we had sort of like limited it to kids, like, oh, when you drive a youth group van, like have 2 people or have a window in your church office. Here are your best practices for like a Facebook group. But it wasn't like a full procedure all the way around. And so my sense of the risk and opportunity was to say, if we're going to invite a ton of people to come forward, especially people who maybe have not been invited to share their stories before, you have to think both about visibility and vulnerability.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what does that look like inside your project? Or what are you hoping? Because you're early. I mean, you're like 4 months in, and so I don't there.
Yeah.
Yeah. How does that translate into the overall idea? And then these just few months in, where are you at with everything?
Yeah, it's super early. So our project is called Revelations, which is a little bit of a like we wanted some playfulness in this because it is about safety and security. But revelation, we want people to dream, right? And it's really hard to dream if you're not safe.
Mm-hmm.
We want God's people to dream again about an increased love of God and love of neighbor, um, and about the life of the world to come.
Mm.
Dream about vibrant futures for ourselves, our neighbors, and our faith. As the planet warms, as communities polarize and nations rage, it's increasingly hard to dream of the life of the world to come.
Mm.
So the idea is that Revelation supports prophetic imagination and Christian storytelling with the explicit objective of building more just, beautiful, and connected American communities.
Mm.
So we imagine increased visibility and a vulnerability that people can choose.
Mm-hmm.
Not one that you're forcibly exposed to, but one that you can choose. So we talk about a risk that people can bear, right? Because for Christians, right, like we're not saying that you will never face risk, but a risk you can bear. Because some of us, especially women, queer folk, people of color, poor people, when you tell your story, those of us who have told our story, we know from the data that when people, especially when you tell your story online, you are more likely to experience hate speech, experience attacks, experience violent language or threat.
Yeah.
And how are the institutions that we work for that are asking us to tell our stories as part of our jobs so often ill-equipped to receive that and often blame the individual,
Mm-hmm.
but are saying as part of your job, we expect you to do this.
Yeah.
So that's the philosophy behind it.
Nice.
We put together like the best design team that is so fun. And then we have 3 components to the grant project: researching, storytelling, and resourcing.
Okay.
Have to go into more of that. But like we are 4 months in, have not even started hiring anyone. I just spent today's staff meeting like offloading some stuff onto colleagues so that I could start writing job descriptions. I mean, that's really where we are right now.
Yeah, no, that's good to hear. I would love to
Yeah.
hear with the 3 sections: research. Wait, say it one more time. You said research.
Researching, storytelling, and resourcing.
Okay, what are those elements, and what does that look like practically?
Yeah. So the researching is super interesting because you want to do both sort of proactive safety work and so that should someone experience harm in storytelling, we know what a rapid response can look like.
Mhm.
Um, So we're partnering with some folks who have experience in this, a group called Expert Voices Together, who have a rapid response set up for um, journalists and for researchers. Um, really love these partners. We're so excited to work with them, and we're subcontracting to have them build another vertical. So if you're a researcher and you publish a book, an article, a journal essay that draws ire, that uh, people find offensive, but you've gone through peer review, you've gone through a good process. They have a rapid response team set up. Right to Be is the host organization that has social workers and folks trained that will create a case file. Say you've published something, you start getting hateful messages. Um, uh, they're building out other verticals for librarians is the next one. And you think about these as sort of forefronts of democracy. What do we need to have healthy free speech um, and intellectual discourse in a healthy democracy? And so we're going to subcontract with them for them to research what do Christian storytellers, what do pastors need?
Mm.
Um, and that may be different than what journalists and researchers need.
Mm.
We think it's likely pretty similar, but what kind of community support? What's your safety plan? And how do they build that? And so you'll have a one-on-one coach should something happen that helps build a safety plan, a response plan. Because as it turns out, the crisis mitigation plan that I designed at Mass Council of Churches for so your pastor's been doxxed. What
Mm.
should you do? Reverend Laura doing risk assessment has kind of worked so far, but maybe we should professionalize that.
Mm.
Um, so that's the first research piece of
Okay,
it.
great. And then that will be public for folks to at some point be able to access. Okay,
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah, and what's really interesting about that too is that's for the individual side of things, but what
Mhm.
we're also hoping,
Mhm.
inshallah, is that there will be resources for institutions. So what are best practices for your website, for uh, dual authentication, what you publish online. I think about the church that came to me and said, should we take down the names and photo of our social justice committee?
Mhm.
We're in a moment where these questions are super real.
Mhm.
And local congregations, mid-level judicatories, seminaries, the other grantees for storytelling, it's not just enough to put all of these new stories into the ether and say good luck.
Right.
Um, that that's a kind of vulnerability that puts too much responsibility on the individual.
Mhm.
How do we create a community of mutual support where, again, it's the language of a risk that we can bear?
Right.
Because as Christians, our life is not without risk. We have stories of ancestors and martyrs who take risks on behalf of the gospel.
Mm. Yeah. So this ethic and practice is undergirding everything you're doing, which is so wonderful. Because and I think hopefully inspiring to folks who are still discerning, yeah, what are their values right now as they're thinking about
Yeah.
launching their project. And so then the storytelling piece, what is that element?
Let me just say one other thing about the
Yeah.
research piece. So that's in research, we have two research components. One is about what are the communal practices of care
Mm-hmm.
um, around risk. And it's not risk management. It's it, it's with a risk that you can bear. The other is about some new research that we're calling psychographic rather than demographic,
Okay.
because we think to tell new Christian stories, we need some new data. So the idea is that we are modeling based on the American Communities Project of community types. So this is more behavioral than demographic. So the idea is different types of Christian behaviors and beliefs. Are there times that an urban Roman Catholic parish and an urban Presbyterian congregation maybe have more in common than an urban Presbyterian church and its suburban Presbyterian kin?
Yeah.
Like, are those behaviors more aligned? Or are there ways that a Korean Presbyterian church in, say, Brookline, Mass, has more in common with a Korean Methodist church in Duluth than its majority white Korean Presbyterian church
Mm.
in Sudbury, where it's geographically close, but the behaviors are more similar with a different denominational neighbor, right? So when we use psychographic research rather than demographic segmentation, we're wondering, might we tell different stories? So if we look at behaviors rather than demographics, could we tell different stories?
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're gonna work with some researchers to figure out what else might we see
Yeah.
about how people's behaviors tell us different things.
That's wonderful. Do y'all have a partner for that already, or?
We have a couple of people that we're hoping to work with.
Yeah.
We haven't
Nice.
quite nailed that down yet. So
Sure. No, that's good. That's
coming
good
in.
to hear. Okay, cool. Okay, what's the storytelling bit?
The storytelling, Lily loves a cohort. We're doing cohorts.
Nice.
So we're gathering. So we'll have that research, right? Like, and maybe we've got new data that helps us understand that we've got more people who identify as service oriented or liturgy oriented or spirituality focused, and that we will have cohorts that gather for the 5 years of our project, starting in Massachusetts for a couple of years, and then New England, and then nationwide. And our sort of gathering point are going to be the screenings of the Leap of Faith film when those gatherings happening. And part of what's interesting about the screening of this documentary film called Leap of Faith is that what the filmmakers have discovered is that the model for film distribution is broken too. People don't just want to like go and see a film anymore. They want to have a shared communal experience. And unless you're like a really big blockbuster, that just isn't working. And we're curious, like, what can pastors learn about that as well?
Yeah.
About what's broken in our distribution model, if like we want to sort of draw a parallel between the two,
Yeah.
that people want to have more of a shared communal experience. So our cohorts will gather online, but also in person around the film screening and the American Revival gatherings of the Leap of Faith film.
Interesting. So you're not producing a film, you're using one that already exists. That feels unique too to folks, which I think is exciting because we have a lot of media out in the world already that is really beautiful and amazing. And there have been conversations with different grantees about like the saturation of media. I'm not saying this to discourage all of the other grantees who are creating more media, but it's interesting that you're choosing also something that already exists. I kind of love that.
Well, and we are going to create some new media, like
Sure.
don't doubt. But I think what I like about how we're also choosing to create some new media is we're talking to amplifiers at the beginning of our process to say, what would you be willing to amplify?
Yeah.
Because as good as I am on comms, I am not skilled as a creator. And so the tendency, I think, for most of us who are not on the content creation side is like, we're going to create and then we push outward. And then we're like, why didn't anybody amplify my stuff? And you're like, well, sunshine, you created like a 30-minute documentary about something that nobody wanted, and now you're cranky about nobody sharing your thing. And you're like, did you notice that the people you tried to pitch it to only share 17-second bits, and you're trying to sell 30-minute documentaries? Like, no kidding, nobody amplified it.
Yeah.
Did you ever ask anyone
Mm-hmm.
why they didn't want your broccoli and cheese casserole?
Yeah. How are y'all defining who an amplifier is? And
That's the job of the person I haven't hired yet.
there you go. To
Right.
whoever's listening to
That
this,
is
just
called
know,
delegation.
yes, whoever's listening
my
to this, if
ministry.
this is your skill set,
Not my skill set.
yes, be looking out for a job description
Coming soon.
Yes, coming soon. Very cool.
Right? Isn't that so fun? Right? Like, I know that, like, that's just like the market segmentation. Yeah. So hi-fi, lo-fi, and then teaching our storytellers how to do a mix of both.
Nice. Okay, wonderful. So is that your
That's storytelling.
storytelling, and then the third element?
Sourcing, which I'm super excited about, which we're the design is to create a national resource center called Magnifica, Center for Wholeness and Security. Stories that make more communities whole, and sharing tools to keep storytellers safer. So we are modeling ourselves on the Global Center for Journalism and Trauma. That used to be known as the DART Center, that was at Columbia Journalism, the World Association of Christian Communicators, the Danielson Institute at Boston University, and the Citizen and Technology Lab, the CAT Lab at Cornell. So super intrigued by all of these mostly academic labs, but in a way, a lot of those labs have not moved outside of the church or outside of the academic realm into like church spaces.
Yeah.
And really feel like we could help resource, if we build this up to scale, resource our folks for best practices on wholeness and security in a comprehensive way about best practices. Um, w- what is data hygiene for clergy and lay leaders? What are, could that be a part of compensation practices? What are the best practices for our websites, for our parishioners, uh, for our websites? We want to research tested and trauma-informed process with consistent care management.
That's super exciting. I feel like what makes me happy about your proposal is, I think, the compelling depth of thoughtfulness around your ethic and value system. I think, but because not just for yourself, but it sounds like on behalf of this a larger network of storytellers. And I feel like at the heart of narrative change, if you haven't really gotten clear about what your value system is, you're exactly right. You're lifting up folks into a bright spotlight who often are already in fragile states or in vulnerable realities. And so the idea of of making their risk less, or if you can, or at least surrounding them by support as they step out and take risk with the type of stories they're telling, I think is huge. As you're thinking about if you have a word, and then and I'll this can be a kind of our like close kind of closing and wrapping this up, and if there's anything else about the project that you want to share. But I think in closing, for folks who are currently discerning their own value system and their own ethic, I don't know if there's a word you have for them too, as you have been navigating this, as you are writing, as you talked about, this is very personal as much as it is something that you're thinking as a culmination of your ministry. Yeah, what would you share? What would you share with folks?
So I think the reason for me that this project has worked and is working and feels so fulfilling is because we built a design team. like a super duper strong design team. Do I have time to shout out the team?
Yes, please do,
Yeah.
because and we'll also
Yeah.
one, if there are resources too that we can point to that folks are like, oh yes, you should know about this person, you should know about this resource. Yes, please shout them
Yeah.
out.
So Expert Voices Together, and Right to Be is the anti-harassment group
Mm.
that we're going to work with on this. But so look, like I like social media. I like being like, it's a good medium for someone who's a verbal processor like me. But we put together a design team that was intentionally multidisciplinary and built this proposal collaboratively because we knew that to have people from multiple different fields of study and not just academics, multiple backgrounds, multiple life experiences. And as soon as you bring together a group like that, you realize that all of us had experienced online harassment
Mm.
because of the stories we've told. But the integrity of everyone in the group led us to realize, like, if we do this well, it will be a gift to the whole of the church and increase the credibility of a story of liberation.
Mm.
And I believe that's got to be to God's glory.
Mm-hmm.
Because this like narrative that we just go at it alone.
Mm.
And one of the things, and I had this aha moment when I was meeting with some of the researchers from Expert Voices Together, and they're academics. They study how online harassment happens. And they said part of the worst thing that happens is you experience isolation.
Mm.
You get to thinking that you did something wrong. All of this like swarm of internet trolling happens, and it convinces you that you, the victim, did something wrong. And the best thing about this project is we put together a team that we're so much smarter together. We're so much wiser. We're so much more faithful together. If the word I can give you is put together the team, do not go at this alone. The language about helping people find a risk that they can bear together,
Mm.
that's the work.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
Yeah. So let me shout out Mr. Lee Hill, who has a journalism philosophy that focuses on high impact community storytelling that centers the people most acutely affected by culture, policies, and systems that happen around them. Dr. J. Nathan Matthias, who names a need for a frame of social media and AI that recognize the dignity and rights of others as made in the image of God, built on evidence-based practice.
Mm.
Reverend Dr. Almeda Wright, who holds a pedagogical conviction on how we protect each other as communal Christian practice at a speed that allows for stories of resistance to surface.
Mm.
Mr. Nicholas Ma, who holds an artistic commitment to tell stories better and a social commitment to learn how to listen better. Dr. Carolyn Crockett, who holds a historic and collaborative commitment to storytelling as a reparative process against collective memory loss. Reverend Laura Everett, who holds an ecumenical commitment that we are bound to one another by our one baptism, not national borders, and so obliged to listen to other Christian stories. And the Reverend Dr. Brandon Thomas Crowley, who holds a homiletic commitment to preach in ways that transform personal testimony into collective witness, listening, lifting stories from the margins, guiding Christian imagination to inspire hope and challenging injustice. That's our crew,
Oh,
right?
what a team. Yeah, seriously, shout out.
I mean, how could,
team.
I was just like, I get to, I'm hanging on to the coattails of the Holy Spirit in that.
Well, and what a mixture of sector experience and lived experience and skill set. Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, Laura, thank you for living the very the advice you have for folks, which is surrounding yourself with a community of people. But it sounds like not just to make a successful grant project happen, but to create more resilient communities, to create more resilient stories that have the capacity to take risk. I mean, stories that have the capacity to take risk. That's huge. And what more do we need in our society today than that? So, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, well, here's the thing is like I look forward to coming back to you in 9, 10 months from now once you've hired this amazing person or
Yeah.
people, humans who will be doing this great work and hearing how all this is going, or maybe even getting an inside look at one of your cohorts or something because this is super exciting work. So, thanks for taking it on.
Thanks. Pray for us, okay?
Yes. Oh, for sure. Every day. Okay. Wonderful conversation with Laura. So much wisdom, so much thought put into this, into the work that they're doing and exciting work ahead. I would love to hear, Josh and Shannon, what are your reflections after listening to what they're working on?
Just a passion project. Like I know everybody's excited about their storytelling work, but in the course of even $5 million with all these partners and everything and timelines, you have to make a series of compromises, and I think sometimes that enthusiasm can fade. Not for her, like clearly not for, and that was so refreshing. And just, I mean, not that anybody's been like, oh, the burden of this $5 million, nothing like that. But I mean, like for her, it was next level.
So true.
Totally agree with you, Josh. Like, I think that's why I enjoyed listening to the recording so much. Is, yeah, she was alive, and it's also right. Like, I love how she talked from the very beginning about how it was connected to her formation. Like,
Mhm.
she is the daughter of a journalist, right? Like, she comes out of that place, and she knows like I think I just hadn't really thought about the cost of people that tell stories in our culture, right? Like, and she grew up seeing that. And so then what does it mean to work with the storytellers now? And then um I I hadn't really thought about some of the kind of online backlash that people and even pastors are facing, but it's funny being on my last trip through the US, like a lot of pastors are feeling silent because they're afraid
Mm.
of stories can they tell. Um and so yeah, I feel excited about their work and I'm just glad she's super passionate about it and she's put together a good team and um, I think like all of us, it feels like it's still slow going, like where, I'm
Mm,
really can't wait to see where she's at a year from now.
mm,
But
Janet, so I had a chance to talk with her a couple of months ago as I was just sort of like doing this virtual tour of the people I knew who had gotten storytelling grants that showed up on the list, and I was just reaching out. And she was nice enough to have a phone call with me. And it literally that first call with her, and then hearing this again, like changed the way that we were thinking about collecting and displaying these stories to the extent that like I know I've talked about AI and the way we're using it previously, but we're now seriously considering making that one of the options for the storytelling like library that we're putting together. Is if you don't feel comfortable having your face and represented on a video in terms of these stories, we could use some AI tools to help animate these
mm,
so that you and like depending on the content of the story, like removing the identifying information from it, so that your story could be out in the world still, but that your name wouldn't have to be attached to it. With their consent, obviously. I mean, this would have to. There's a whole set of things, protocols. But I'm just thinking, like, that opened up for me a whole different way of thinking of like how else might we get these stories out there that are so important for somebody who would be afraid of that,
yeah.
that very thing of being identified or being backlash or having backlash, etc.
That's super interesting, Josh. I'm thinking about, one of the things that I'm wondering about too is like this is like super random tangential, but like the difference between like realism and abstract art too, right? Like how much like the kind of line that she talks about between visibility and vulnerability, right? Like, and like maybe something doesn't need to be all the way visible all the time, right?
Yeah.
Like, and just, but actually, maybe you can animate or illustrate in a way that still infuses a story with vulnerability and authenticity and all of those things, but is safe,
Yeah.
right? And,
Or safe
yeah,
enough. I mean, she talked about that, Elizabeth. I'm curious because she talked about this a lot in the interview. It's like, what did she call it? Like a risk you can bear or
yeah.
something?
Mm.
You've done a lot of storytelling work. I mean, how did that strike you? Does that feel like the right like
Yeah,
place to land?
and the risk you can bear in the middle of an interview is different than the risk you can bear as the person then being portrayed in a video, like several months or a year later. And so I think like that's the tricky thing with this work. And we've talked about the ethics of storytelling on here before. And I just am reminded of it again listening to, I'm so grateful that they are like putting their, like almost digging their heels in
Mm,
into their ethic first and saying we must name this first, because I do think that the people risking the most um are not the people with frankly the $5 million grant. They're
mm,
not the people who wrote the RFP. They're not the people who will write the reports. They're not necessarily the people who will watch or take in the media. They're the people who, without them, there is no substance to the story. And so at the end of the day, I think like the risk that you can bear, yeah, and in the beginning might be very different. And how do we allow people to name that openly in a way that's safe for them? The other thing it really makes me think is like not just what's the cost to people, but then and here we are in a with transactional language around this, which I think is limiting, but also like if we're going to say is like, what's the payment then? What's the payment? And I think we have to ask this. I was actually just shout out to this sounds like name dropping, but if y'all ever are wanting to learn from somebody great in the field of media making, composer Nathan Johnson, Shannon, you know Nathan. I was just in driving across the Texas Hill Country with him recently, and he was talking about as an artist and as a composer like how payment has changed and shifted over his time. And I think the same with storytellers. We asked this question a lot as we were doing our storytelling work, is like what is the agency inside of the payment that is reciprocated? What's the reciprocity inside of what the cost is with what that payment is for that person? That might look like literal cash. That might look like something very different, like companionship. That might look like agency over the story. That might look like trust. That might look like a host of things. And so I think that it got me thinking about this idea of not just the cost, but how are we being open about what that payment can be and sitting inside of a context where we have cash. But think beyond that expansively of what the cost is on people and then what we can reciprocate that cost with. That's where my brain was living a lot after the interview with Laura.
I really love that, Elizabeth. I think we have to go back more and more all the time. It's cost and consequence, like the
Hmm.
unintended consequence, right? Um, for individuals and for communities,
Hmm. Yeah,
right?
I think so. And I mean, and what a young storyteller needs early on in their career in terms of access and agency is very different than an established, like Shannon, you were saying, these sage storytellers that you're inviting into your retreat need at that stage in their career. And the same can be said about the folks who are in front of the camera as well, or who are the subject of the story, or who are in the animated feature, like you're talking about, Josh, where they're feeling the high amount of risk of their
mhm.
likeness being portrayed in a realistic way. It's the world we live in. So,
Makes me not rethink our commitment, but like it makes me rethink the project through the lens of this commitment that we have at Future Faith, where there's various ways I've toyed around with saying it, but I haven't figured the right one out yet. It's like we want to be the most vulnerable ones in the chain, but then that doesn't sound great because like the chain is going to break because of us. I don't mean that. We want to be the most generous. We want to lose every transaction. That was another way that I keep saying of like we want to be the ones who are giving the most in any like on balance, like in any web of relationships in any project. But like, how do you do that here? And it's like I mean, there is a straight up like we can compensate you, I guess, with cash for your story, but you're bringing up some thoughts for me, Elizabeth, especially in the context of this interview. Like maybe the thing that is most valuable here is not cash, but is like, is there some way that we can invite you into a community that you would find valuable, and like even if that would take us way more time to curate, that's okay with us. I mean, because we're not at Future Faith trying to maximize every dollar and every minute. Our commitments go in a different way.
Yes, well, and I think that's one thing I get excited about, like with your project, Shannon, of creating the space for uh, basically a retreat gathering for young storytellers, and the idea of these sage storytellers. There's already reciprocity in each agreeing to be part of that, right? That folks at the beginning of their career or who are learning aren't all of a sudden in proximity to folks who could give them next access. I think that was a huge thing. The people that I think, I mean, Shannon, you've played that role in my life, you know, personally. There are others inside of our ecosystem who have played that role. There's no repayment for that. And so I do think, like, how do we think expansively and creatively about this? I remember also we were, you know, there was a project we were working on and with some folks, and one of the people that was going to be featured in the story was like, you know, we actually don't need money, we need a washer and dryer, and we can't take out credit to pay for that washer and dryer, and you know, all these things. And it was actually easier for us to just purchase the washer and dryer for them and give it to them than pay them. And I think also then us, we had never even opened up the conversation of like, what is this worth to you, and what do you need, and how do we allow them to be creative about that too? So even giving folks who are part of it the creativity to say, this is what payment for me could really look like in this season of life. That was a lesson we learned and the hard way in doing this as well, but super helpful.
I want to change tack a little bit and go. I want to pull on this thing that Laura said that I don't want to lose because I'm just curious. She, you know, so the name of their project is Revelations, right? And it's about like really this connection to a prophetic imagination. And she said, at the end of it all, like we want God's people to dream again about vibrant futures, to dream again about what wholeness and flourishing looks like, right? To dream again about a better world in the midst of all of the, you know, warming that's going on and wars and all these things. We want God's people to dream again. And I just wonder if y'all heard that as well. I was like, yes, I hope so. And it feels so like I'm excited to see how the work takes shape because I think it's almost like there's an assumption for her. We know this is going to happen. It's the name of the project, but we're so focused on the ethic and how does all that happen? But it's like, I don't want to lose that. Like, and I feel like, again, in all of the money that's out there for all of these grants, how do we not lose like that kind of big overarching God is still at work in the world. We want to dream God's dreams for today, right? Like, I don't know. Like, to me, like, how do we not miss that, like, in the midst of all the work that's going on? So, anyway, I don't know. What do y'all think about
It doesn't.
that?
It feels like art has to be a part of the answer to that question. And as I was listening to her say that, if I was thinking about, you know, sort of everybody that, you know, so I was listening to it obviously for this podcast, right? So I'm thinking about all the people who might be in this ecology or whatever, listening to us talk about these. And I don't know any that are. I mean, maybe there are some, and Elizabeth, you might know better. But like, I'm not hearing. There weren't like a lot. It's not like Lily funds art programs typically. I mean, I know art is a part of, you know, delivering Christian programming to the world, which is largely, you know, through congregations, which is largely the focus here, but I was thinking like, man, that would have been cool if they would have given a few to just artists to tell stories. And I know we're all gonna like, again, like I know there will be art in these, but that felt like a thing that would have been. I'd have loved to see what 3 or 4 or 5, artists could have done with $5 million on Christian storytelling.
Oh, it's so true. I mean, and there are there are folks that are hiring great artists to walk
Yeah.
alongside them, and so that is super great and arguably probably easier on the artist than needing to steward $5 million. It's
Yeah, good
actually
point. Yeah.
it's a bigger gift back to the artist to steward that, and be a conduit of that. And so shout out to everyone to now go find yourself an artist to walk alongside of you. And that artist, I feel like,
And note that Elizabeth is saying, don't give artists $5 million. Like she said, that's too hard for them. She doesn't want you to pay them that much.
I'm like, I'm married to one, and he would like be so mad at me right now for saying this, I think. But I'm like, also, like, what does it mean to be a fiscal sponsor on behalf of
Yeah,
somebody?
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Okay. So just
A
saying that
patron, right? Like
married
there's a long history of this model. This is good.
is
Yeah.
exactly.
Yes.
And I like, you know, quick reference, The Gift of Asher Lev, the book. I reference this all the time, but I think it's a really good thing to remember. It's a good reminder of like, his conversation with his rabbi when Asher's parents are trying to convince him to not be an artist. They're like, you're going to go talk to the rabbi and he's going to convince you to do get a real job. And the rabbi looks at him and says, our job is the same as an artist and a rabbi, is to see when other people are blinking and let them know, and then tell the world what we've seen. And I think that about the possibilities in this grant initiative are inviting us in. And I think we need the people alongside us who see when the world is blinking and help us make sense of that sight and steward that sight. And I 100% believe artists are key inside of all of that, whether those are musical artists, storytelling artists, like videographers that we'll hear on this podcast at some point, others who really help folks do that very thing.
Amen. I
Yeah.
agree.
Yes. Y'all, this is, I'm super excited about, and I will say, Laura has some great artists walking alongside her in her project, and I am jazzed to see what comes from the work, just because from the beginning they've worked with artists to write their proposal, and so super excited to check back in at some point. So yeah.
Cool. For doing the interview, Elizabeth.
Oh
it's
yeah.
great.
Well, so I was selfishly wanted to do that because I adore Laura Everett, and it was just fun to hang out on Zoom for a little bit. So thanks everyone for listening, for tuning in. Check us out on the next episode of The Backstory. Thanks.
You've been listening to the Backstory podcast. For all the episodes and more resources, head over to www.futureoffaith.org/storytelling.